Good evening. This is John Paval. It's Monday evening, 6 in the evening European time, noon on the East Coast in the US, 9 in the morning on the West Coast. That means it's time for the weekly roundup of the big guns, orchestral works and opera works and any ballet or other big stage production we can find for you. And we have something for nearly every day this week. So let's get to it. The first piece that we have online for you this week is starting in just a little bit of time. It's because it's 6 o'clock in the evening here in Europe, and this next live stream will be coming through at 7 o'clock. Now, wait a second. Let me make sure I get this right. No, it's going to be a little later than that. But anyway, let me tell you about it. Do you love Mozart enough to pay 25 Australian dollars to hear it? That's 17 US dollars or 15 euros. And that's what it will cost you on the Australian Digital Concert Hall to hear this concert called Mostly Mozart, which is being put on by the Australian National Academy of Music. They do quality work, and they'll be playing music from both the early and late stages of the lives of Mozart and Schubert. So it's sort of a musicological experience that they're preparing for you. They will do from Mozart in the first half of the program, they'll do his overture from the Magic Flute, Commercial number 620. And then they will do his Symphony number 25 in G minor, Commercial number 183. And he composed that symphony when he was only 17 years old. Then after the break, they'll do Schubert's Grab und Mond, and they'll finish up doing Schubert's Symphony number 3 in D. And that Schubert also wrote when he was just a teenager. So it's an interesting concert that they have for you down under. It's Tuesday morning, which is tomorrow, in Australia, 11 o'clock in the morning, Australian Eastern Daylight Time. That'll be 1 o'clock at night here in Europe, 7 o'clock in the evening, Eastern Standard Time. So it's about 6 hours from now, 7 hours from now. And 4 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the afternoon on the West Coast. The changing of times from daylight times, the European and we in the Northern Hemisphere changing off daylight savings time, and Australia and New Zealand going onto it has changed the time differences such that an awful lot of concerts from down under are going to be showing up in prime time here in the US and or in Europe in the coming months until we get to the spring. So you might want to take advantage of that. It's on the Australian Digital Concert Hall. We give you the link, we give you the amount, and you can go there and enjoy it. Check it out. Now, let's get back to Europe and what's going on here, although we'll be getting back to Down Under in just a couple more performances. Janine Jansen is one of my favorite violinists. Here, I'll show you a picture of her. Oh, where is she? Where's the picture? That's Janine Jansen. And when you pair her together with Sakari Oramo, you are set up for a fantastic concert. I don't usually gush over performers or concerts or use superlatives to talk about them. This is an exception. This is an exception. I could tell you, before I tell you more about both of them, what you need to understand is that these two, they go way back. Sakari was the artistic director of the Stockholm Symphony Orchestra for about a decade in the teens, until a few years ago. And you would often see Janine Jansen coming in to perform with the orchestra during that period. Look at this picture. This is back in 2014. This is a decade ago. The two of them at the BBC proms playing La Cucaracha together. these they are two people who truly have great love for each other, great knowledge of each other. To pair them off in a concert is just a great idea. This will be the Elbphilharmonie Orchestra, and it's Thursday at 8 o'clock in the evening, European time, 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the East Coast. Take a late lunch. 11 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast, 6 o'clock in the morning in Australia. And I tell you, it's worth getting up early for. This is free of charge on the Elbphilharmonie website. They'll start out doing Verdi's overture from La Forza del Destino, and then they're going to be doing a piece by Britta Byström, who's a Swedish composer, who the piece was commissioned by the Elbphilharmonie and the Royal Stockholm Phil. This is its world premiere. Byström is born in 1977. I think, how old does that make her now? You can add that up. She's a member of the Swedish Royal Academy. She's written works for all kinds of ensembles, from string quartets to tuba and accordion duos. She'll write anything. It's kind of impressionistic music. Her music tends to be very modern, and so it's not like, this is not Schubert, okay? But yet it's classical. In other words, she's using classical sounding music to do non-classical sounding things. She's not using people banging on garbage cans or something like that. So I think it's interesting to find out what it is. And since it's for violin and orchestra, I am understanding that that's what Janine Jansen is going to be playing the violin on, and then after that, then they will do in the second half of the program Elgar's Symphony No. 2 in E flat major. Sakari Oramo really loves Elgar's second. He was the first one to conduct it in an orchestra outside of the British Empire. The British, they love to play their own music. And this is the first time the Elbphilharmonie is playing it. I believe he actually recorded it. As for Janine Jansen, if you don't know her, well, her work this year includes doing a U.S. tour with the London Symphony Orchestra, doing European tours with the Royal Concertgebouw Orchestra and with the Deutsche Kammerphilharmonie, Chamber Philharmonic, doing Vivaldi's Four Seasons together with the Amsterdam Sinfonietta on tour across South America. She's everywhere, and in 2024-25, that's this year, she is the artist in focus at the Vienna Musikverein, and they're going to have a bunch of projects together there. So I would say this latest collaboration between Jansen and Oramo is one you don't want to miss. We move on from this, and I told you we get back to Down Under, and we're getting back to Down Under already. For the second time this week, you have a chance to enjoy one of the top orchestras from Down Under. This time it's New Zealand, not Australia. This time it's the New Zealand Symphony under the leadership of Gemma May, whom I really like, in a concert which is a cross between British music and cosmic music, if you can believe that. And the main participants in it, I got a picture of the two of them. I put a couple pictures of them together for you to have a look at. There's Gemma New. I'm sorry, I think I called her Gemma May. I always get confused, but I never get the Gemma wrong now that I know how to pronounce it. And it's Christian Tetzlaff who's coming in on the violin. So let me tell you a little bit about the players here on this. First, let me tell you what they're playing. They're starting out with Kaya Sarayaho's Asteroid 4179 Tutatis. This is the New Zealand premiere. You see the name Sariaho and you think this is Japanese, right? No, this is this Finnish composer who moved to Paris in 1982 and never looked back and lived there the rest of her life. Ended up marrying there, having kids, and won all kinds of prizes and awards for writing. You can look her up on Wikipedia. I don't know if we have room. We have limited room in how much we can put in the list of contacts for you. But I strongly advise you to look her up. It's Asteroid 4179 is space music. Okay, so you're going to hear it's very cosmic. And in the second half of the program, they do Gustav Holst's The Planet. So there's the cosmic side of it. Now, the British side of it is, of course, the Holst. Holst and Elgar are the two that always get trotted out. So I'm sort of not surprised by this, and I don't think it's like the most imaginative programming. I think the Boston Symphony last week did the same thing. They did Elgar and they did Holst, but they weren't doing the violin concerto by Elgar, which they will be doing down in New Zealand. They were doing the cello concerto. But Elgar and Holst, they lived in the same time period. They both died in 1934, and so they get thrown together when people want to do a concert of British music. But I can tell you a little bit about Gemma May. Besides having been a Dudamel Fellow, which marks her as someone of quality in my eyes, the Dudamel Fellowship is something they've had at the Los Angeles Philharmonic for years under Gustavo Dudamel, and very fine conductors have come out of it. She has conducted all the top orchestras around. I mean, if I give you the list, it's the New York Phil, the LA Phil, the San Francisco, Philadelphia, Cleveland, the Detroit Symphony, the BBC Phil, the Halle Orchestra in Birmingham, the Helsinki Phil, etc., the Orchestra Nationale d'Île-de-France, etc. And so, and I think she's a terrific conductor. The soloist, this guy, where did I put that picture? Christian Tetzlaff has been, I never believed these descriptions. He was described in Der Tagesspiegel as like a rock star with so much violinistic superpower. I'm not really sure what that means, but I can tell you that born in Hamburg, lives in Berlin, and he's played recently with the St. Louis Symphony, with the Tonhall Orchestra in Zurich, with the Rundfunk Orchestra in Berlin, with the Seoul Philharmonic, the Bergen Philharmonic. He goes, there are 4 or 5 orchestras that he goes on tours with. He's been an artist in residence at Wigmore Hall, but also in Berlin, Seoul, Dresdner Philharmonics. So I think you can expect him to do a really great job with the Elgar violin concerto. And when you put that together with the other kind of fireworks, I think it, to me, it sounds like a very interesting evening. Now, look, you don't get that for free. There is a charge in order to watch, in order to enjoy the New Zealand Symphony Orchestra concerts. They want you to register and pay a monthly digital subscription fee. It's $5.95 New Zealand dollars. That's $3.75 in US dollars, or €3.40 in euros. And you can cancel it at the end of any month or during any month, so you don't get stuck with it. But they do 1 or more concerts per month, and I find them absolutely worth it. I mean, I haven't heard them do a concert that I didn't like. So if you want to go cosmic and British at the same time this week, this is your chance to do it. Now, the timing of it is best for people on the West Coast. It's on Friday, 6:30 in the evening in New Zealand, which is 6:30 in the morning in Europe. They're 12 hours ahead of us now, or we're 12 hours behind, which is a half past midnight on the East Coast and 9:30 in the evening on the West Coast. And most of these down under concerts are going to be prime time on the West Coast for the next 4 or 5 months. So Why not check them out and hear orchestras which ordinarily are playing at times which is going to be difficult for you to hear it? It's only $3.75. Anybody on the West Coast who can't afford that, well, let me know. I'll loan it to you. I'll wire it to you just to give you a chance to listen to it. By the way, that Elgar violin concerto, Elgar loved it so much that he wanted one of the themes in it inscribed on his tomb. So he really thought it was hot stuff. So why not take advantage of the time change and check it out, all you folks on the West Coast? We move on to Friday evening in Europe, where we have another German orchestra. This time it's not the Elbphilharmonie in Hamburg. It's the Frankfurt Radio Symphony, which does quality live streams on a regular basis, which are free of charge. This one's on Friday at 8 o'clock in the evening, European time, 2 in the afternoon on the East Coast, and 11 in the morning on the West Coast. They'll be doing two pieces. They'll be doing the symphonic dances of Rachmaninoff, a very popular work. And then they'll be doing Prokofiev's Sinfonia Concertante, the symphonic concerto, the concerto for orchestra, which involves for orchestra and cello. And there are two visitors at the Frankfurt Radio Symphony who are doing this concert. So the conductor is Petra Popelka. I think I have a photograph that I can show you of these two people. I do like to show the photographs to humanize these people for you. So I'm not just talking there. There's Kian Soltani looking very soulful. You don't get the pictures, I'm sorry, on Instagram, but you can look up our videos on our other platforms. We're on 5 or 6 of them, and you can see the pictures there if you really want to. That's Kian Soltani. He's an Austrian, but of Persian ancestry, and he made his name internationally, winning the International Paolo Cello competition in Helsinki about a decade ago. He was in Daniel Barenboim's West East Divan Orchestra, which I'm a great believer in because it promotes peace. And this year he's been the focus artist of the Zurich Tonhall Orchestra. He's played with the Vienna Symphony, the Köln Symphony. He's played with the Elb, the Cincinnati Symphony, the Concert House Orchestra in Berlin, et cetera, et cetera. And he was in a Stage Plus and live stream called The Yellow Room with Daniil Trifonov back in, how do I get rid of this picture for you so you can see me again? Back in September, and we told you about that live stream. You know, if you keep track of if you actually follow us, you're gonna see all these people appearing and reappearing in live streams. He was in a Yellow Room Stage Plus live stream because he's one of the Deutsche Grammophon artists. The conductor Petra Popelka, he's Czech. And he has been and remains the chief conductor and artistic director of the Prague Radio Symphony Orchestra. And he's been newly named the chief conductor of the Vienna Symphony Orchestra. So he's on the rise. And this year he will be conducting the Nobel Prize concert with the Royal Stockholm Phil, which I will look forward to because I'm here in Stockholm. And he was... When the Elbphilharmonie Orchestra first created a conductor fellowship, he was the first one that got picked. And after that, he went straight into being the chief conductor at the Norwegian Radio Orchestra and then went to Czech and all of that. So these are two good people. And Kian Soltani is certainly up to the challenge of Prokofiev's concerto. And the Rachmaninoff symphonic dances, well, everybody likes those. You know, those are crowd pleasers. So it's hard to go wrong with this. And this is one of these free of charge concerts. Why wouldn't you check it out? You know, I look at these and this and in particular, I think it may be this orchestra which just is celebrating having 500,000 subscriptions. On YouTube, but many of these orchestras will have hundreds of thousands of followers, and yet when you tune into the live streams, there's only a few hundred. I mean, you know, when an orchestra has 500,000 followers on YouTube and only 500 follow the live stream, what are the other 499,500 people doing? Why are they not enjoying the live stream, which they get free of charge? Whereas to walk into the concert hall to get to get that music would cost them an awful lot more. Well, an awful lot more than free of charge. Yeah. Okay, so let's continue moving along here. Saturday, there are 2 concerts for you. There's let me tell you about them. We don't have an opera from the La Scala Opera House this week being live streamed, but we do have a concert. La Scala favorite conductor Simone Young, who they use her a lot for opera conducting, is teaming up with violinist Sergej Krylov on Saturday night for an evening of Brahms and Strauss. It's at the live stream starts at 7:45 in the evening European time, 1:45 your Saturday afternoon, and 10:45 in the morning on the West Coast. And that 1:45 was on the East Coast. It's not free of charge. It'll cost you €4.90, which is $5.30. But if you like the music, maybe you want to listen to it. They'll be doing Brahms Concerto in D major, Opus 77 for violin and orchestra. And then they'll do Strauss's Ein Heldenleben, Opus 40. And I have a picture of the 2 of them for you as well. This is Simone Young and Sergej Krylov. She's, she's strong. I'll tell you that. And she's a Wagner and Strauss specialist. So having her do Ein Heldenleben is the right choice, which may well have been her choice. She's had a long career for 20 years or so in Europe at the Lausanne Chamber Orchestra. She was at the Gulbenkian Orchestra in Lisbon. She was with the Hamburg Phil and the Hamburg State Opera for about a decade, but she's now the chief conductor at the Sydney Symphony Orchestra in her native Australia since 2022. But she's very big in opera. She conducted Das Rheingold this past summer at the Bayreuth Opera Festival, which was live streamed, and we told you about it. Krylov he's 54 years old. So he's coming to the peak of his career. Since 2008, he has been the chief conductor of the Lithuanian Chamber Orchestra. So he's a very accomplished guy. And sometimes violinists like that are really very good, especially at playing in concertos. And this is Brahms's Concerto in D major, Opus 77, and so there should be a very good collaboration going on between the 2 of them over that. And he's been a soloist with all that. I could read you the list, but it's just think of the top ones: the London Phil, the Radio France, the Berlin Concert House, the Accademia de Santa Cecilia, where Daniel Harding just got named as the head guy. Anyway, that looks like a good concert, and why not check it out? The last symphony we have for this week brings us back to the United States. Jader Bignamini is back. He returns to the podium of the Detroit Symphony Orchestra this Saturday evening in Detroit at 7:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4:45 on the West Coast, 1:45 a.m. In Europe, and 11:45 in the morning, your Sunday morning down under in Australia, to conduct 2 very high-energy, vigorous pieces. They'll be doing Mahler's 5th Symphony in the second half, but before that, they will do Haydn's Symphony number 100 in G major, the Military Symphony. And if I know of any conductor who's got a lot of energy, it's Jader Bignamini. Look at the picture he's letting them use to promote this concert. I mean, he's not afraid to look like he's in a fury of conducting, and usually he's conducting with a guest soloist. This time, no, it's Jader and that orchestra. And he's kind of been absent. The last 3 concerts by this orchestra were all conducted by other people. Leonard Slatkin came back for one. The new principal guest conductor, Tabitha Berglund, came for one. And then there was a third one, which he also didn't do. It looks like he's conducting maybe once a month. And I don't know what's up with that, because I really enjoy the energy he brings to conducting there. So I hope we'll see him more often. Anyway, that is free of charge, as are all the Detroit Symphony Orchestra live streams. They've been doing it for a decade. They live stream more often than just about anybody else, and it's high quality stuff. If you're anywhere in the United States, the timing really suits you, and I would tell you, I wouldn't miss it if I were you. We wind up with an opera this week. Yay! It's the 250th anniversary of the birth of Gaspare Spontini. Who's Gaspare Spontini? He's the guy who created La Vestale, the Vestal Virgin. In the early 1800s, it was fantastically successful. In its first run, it was performed over 200 times. People loved it. This was during the Napoleonic times, and but in the 20th century, it is rarely performed. But since it's the 250th anniversary of his birth, it is getting performed. The Paris Opera performed it. Well, that's no surprise, because but they had to dust it off to find it and put together a production for it. That was last May. And now Opera Streaming is live streaming it this Sunday, November 24th at 3:30 in the afternoon in Europe. That's 9:30 in the morning on the East Coast. You can have a lovely Sunday morning opera, or 6:30 in the morning, not so lovely on the West Coast, and late night Sunday night, 1:30 a.m. down under in Australia. And it's being live streamed from Teatri Piacenza in Italy. Opera Streaming is a coalition of about a half dozen Italian regional opera houses, which started doing live streaming during the COVID years just to survive and stay in touch with their public, but which have continued doing it now. And so let me tell you a little bit about the people who's in it. Listen, this is basically an opera about how to avoid being buried alive for the sake of love. and the more complications of it, look it up. I recommend you look it up on the live stream page and get the history of the story rather than my giving it to you. I would like to tell you about the main performers in it. This is a show basically carried by the women performers in it, because it's this woman playing the role of Julia, who is trying to avoid being buried alive for reuniting with her former lover. It's Carmela Remigio in the role of Julia. She really got well known by traveling around the world and doing over 70 concerts with Luciano Pavarotti, who I think discovered her because she won a Pavarotti opera competition. She's done more than 500 performances of Don Giovanni, recorded it twice early in her life with Claudio Abbado, and then more recently with Daniel Harding. She's a real musician of a singer because she started as a violinist. So I think you can expect her to do a great job. And then the second important role is played by Daniela Pini. She plays the role of the great Vestal Virgin, who has a say in determining whether or not Julia is going to be buried alive. And she has performed all over the place. When you take a look at places where she's performed in recent years, it's all over Italy, like the Comunale in Bologna, but also at Suntory Hall in Tokyo. Do I have her picture up? Yeah, at the Frankfurt Opera, on the Champs-Élysées in Paris, at the Barbican Hall in London, at the New National Theatre in Tokyo, at La Monnaie in Brussels, etc., etc. And the kind of role she's played Angelina in Rossini's La Cenerentola, Cherubino in Figaro, Isabella in Rossini's L'Italiani in Algeria, Melibaea in Rossini's Il Viaggio a Reims, etc., etc., etc. So these are your two big leads in the show. And aside from them, Bruno Taddea, or I don't know if it's Taddea. My Italian isn't that great. Is playing the role of Licinius, who is the former lover with whom Julia gets reunited, and for doing so is threatened with being buried alive. And I'm not going to tell you more whether it ends happily or unhappily, but it's in 3 acts, and it has two intermissions in it. So you're in for a time. And Bruno gets around. I mean, if you take a look at where he's performed recently, it's very French. The Grand Théâtre de Genève, the Montpellier Opera, the Théâtre des Champs-Élysées, the Théâtre du Châtelet. Not to say he hasn't appeared in other places, but these are the places that pop out when you look at where he has been active. This is what we have for you this week. It's been 30 minutes. I've thought of trying to make it shorter, and I've thought of just letting it go longer. And this time it went longer, folks, but these will get cut down. We will have replays for you of individual snippets so that you can make choices more easily about what you want to listen to all the way through or not. If you want a Sunday afternoon's opera, if you're in Europe, or a Sunday morning opera in the morning on the East Coast, this one from Opera Streaming, God bless them, is free of charge. If you know the opera, you may really want to see it and enjoy it again. If you don't know it, it's a great way to discover it without, paying the steep prices that would cost you to walk into the doors of any opera house in the country. I think that's one of the advantages that live streaming is bringing. Ciao for now, I have to say. Remember, I would encourage you to remember us and subscribe to us on YouTube especially, or on Facebook, and repost things to your friends when you see them to try to help build this global audience. Any of these that are on YouTube, check into the chat box on YouTube and say hello if you see us there. If you don't see us there, just say hello to the moderator and let them know that we were the ones who brought you there. There are people in the chat boxes on some of these live streams from all over the world, from all over Europe, from North America, from South America. There was a small but lively global audience of people checking in, and it's like you get to sit in the back row and crack jokes and chat, and the ushers can't shush you because nobody can hear what you're doing. So that's it for this Monday. I will be back tomorrow on Tuesday with the live stream about the organ recitals this week. We have a couple coming to you from the Catholic Cathedral in Moscow, which sound very interesting. There's a double organ symphonic recital, etc., and the usual run of others. And then we will also have a live stream on Tuesday or Wednesday of all of the live streams of chamber music, which we could find for you. Last week, we had to divide it in two between contemporary chamber music and classical. We'll see how much we have for this week. I'll be doing research between now and whenever I get that live stream up to find out for you what there is. We do all the work so that you can just come on, follow us, and when you see something you like, you just click and go.